Can I put you on speakerphone? How do I do that?
Oh, heck yeah. Speakerphone sounds super fun, like we're on an adventure together. If you're on the little speaker button that pops up during a call.
Okay, you're
in
on.
the corner, sneaky like a ninja.
You're live.
If you're using some.
Are you ready to be famous, baby? Hey, you know what? I was gonna say you're the perfect co-host. You're the perfect.
Aw,
Yeah.
I'm blushing. I make it right back at you, super.
You have permission to
What flavor do you think it would pick?
you have permission to finish everything you're saying and don't let me interrupt you, even if you hear anything, which you will. You know, because I laugh at a lot of your jokes and stuff.
Okay, here's what happens. A unicorn would pick sparkly rainbow. Next one. If Mickey Mouse had to pick a bedtime story, which one do you think he'd read? Snow White, Peter Pan, or would he just make up his own with talking gloves? Take your time, champ. I'm not going anywhere.
Maybe it would be like a human story is to Mickey what a Mickey Mouse story is to us. Nothing.
Next question. I love that answer. If a T Rex wanted to play hide and seek, but it couldn't use its tiny arms, where do you think it'd hide? Where do you think it'd hide?
Well, what does his arms have to do with it? Do you usually use your arms a lot when you play hide and seek? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't play it because my arm's broken, and I usually hang from things in closets. The voice mode just kicked off. Thanks a lot, babe. You're embarrassing me. Okay. Start recording. Start recording. What's this here? Video download helper. Edit. So, 3 minutes. Share screen. What else can I do? Manage. What does manage do? Nothing. What does this button do? What does this button do? Pop out dashboard. Ooh, cool. Okay, pop out dashboard. Settings. Channel live settings. Send feedback. Not now. Not a now. Time is it 1:30? 1:38. What is your battery level? 79%. What are you? Oh shit. Holy shit. That is well said.
But you didn't change. Remembered who you were before pain made you polite, before society taught you to fear your own fire, before faith became a ritual instead of a revolution. You remembered what it meant to walk with thunder in your chest and conviction in your spine. You remembered that kindness without strength is slavery. You remembered that sometimes, to protect what's sacred, must become sacred during itself. Now look around you.
Yeah.
The same ones who laughed when you broke, who whispered when you still arrogant, dangerous. God calls ready. You're not here to prove anything anymore. You've outgrown the need for applause. You've outlasted their doubt, their pity, their noise. You've entered the season of divine retaliation, not revenge. The season of divine retaliation, not revenge, but restoration. You've been through enough nights to understand the scripture in pain. You've been through enough wars to know what peace really costs. You've been silent long enough to know the sound of your own authority. And when you walk, the dream listens. Speak, storms obey. When you pray, heaven arms itself. Because you are no longer the believer who begged for survival. You are the warrior who became the answer to his own prayer. So the next time they see you rise, when they feel your presence before they hear your voice, remember, you didn't become powerful. You inevitably by pain. And on the day God let you off your leash, heaven smiled, because hell finally had a problem to stand. It's a moment heaven stops teaching and starts sending. That's the moment you're living in now. The reckoning. You've learned through storms, prayed through silence, and God doesn't call your name with whispers. He calls you with orders. Not in training anymore. You're in deployment. It's armed with memory. Every scar, every betrayal, every night you've led and refused to quit. They weren't setbacks. They were armory. Carry faith like fire, discipline like a blade, mercy like thunder wrapped in restraint. The world sees a man, but heaven sees a weapon. When heaven arms its warriors, it doesn't give them comfort, it gives them calling. It removes distractions, burns bridges, ends friendships. You think it's loss, but it's pruning. You think it's loneliness, but it's focus. Because when you are armed by God, you don't walk with crowds. You walk with purpose. And purpose has no room for comfort. You'll feel it when the war begins again. It won't be swords or bullets. It'll be doubt, delay, and fatigue. The enemy won't always roar. Sometimes it'll whisper, "You're too tired. You've done enough. Sit down." That's when you remember You weren't made to rest while evil walks free. You weren't saved to stay silent while lies rule. You were made for this, to bring light through fury and truth through pain.
This shit is like this.
When God
This takes me up so bad.
He
I mean,
gives
so
him
good.
clarity. That's why the old distractions don't work anymore. You can't laugh at the same lies. You can't sit with people who mock your calling. Waste your breath convincing the blind to see what you see. Strategy, whisper into your chaos. Realize you're not fighting for yourself anymore. It's gone. Let on his leash.
True. All true. Wrap me in a bolt of lightning. Da, 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 da. Mhm. 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 The return of Lilith. Oh my god. Okay, we gotta hear that. We gotta hear that.
I never planned to uncover anything like this. Began when I was allowed into a restricted section of an old theological archive in Rome. An old stone room with the Bibliotheca Apostolica Vaticana. I was searching for fragments of lost apocrypha, but what wasn't on any official index. It was a faded manuscript, catalogued under Genesis Traditio A, sealed in wax, and marked with a single word, Lilith. The ink was ancient, almost burned into the parchment. The handwriting looked older than Latin, and the opening line changed everything I thought I knew about creation.
Talking about the
Before
return
Eve,
of Lilith.
there was Lilith, the woman formed from dust as Adam was.
Dark divine
At
feminine.
first, I thought it was a Gnostic forgery, but as I compared phrases, I found parallels in the alphabet of Ben Sira, a Hebrew text dated around the 9th century CE, and earlier still in Babylonian cuneiform tablets, referencing Lilitu, a spirit of wind and rebellion. The Vatican never officially acknowledges these texts, but I was looking at proof that the story of Eve might have been a replacement, a correction, to erase someone. The deeper I read, the clearer it became. Before there was submission, there was equality. Before paradise, there was defiance. According to the fragments, God formed Adam and Lilith from the same clay. There was no hierarchy between them, no rib, no master, no servant. They were meant to mirror the balance of creation itself, masculine and feminine, order and instinct. But Lilith refused to lie beneath Adam, not out of lust, but out of principle. We are equal, the manuscript quoted her saying. Those 3 words were the first rebellion recorded in human myth, and possibly the first truth ever punished. When
Oh
she
my
left
god,
Eden,
yes.
the manuscript said she spoke the name, an act of blasphemy so severe it was struck from Genesis. But the name wasn't profanity, it was power, the ineffable tetragrammaton, the breath of God itself, a word that only angels and prophets were said to know. For centuries, the church. I shouldn't be sharing this, but
No,
what
go
I
back.
found inside the
back.
restricted archive, the name, an act.
Yeah, that when Adam, she wouldn't submit to Adam, she spoke the magic words and went off with Samuel, or like one of the angels, to a safe place. The story is incredible. Let's keep listening.
Act of blasphemy so severe it was struck from Genesis. The name wasn't profanity, it was power, the ineffable tetragrammaton, the breath of God itself, a word that only angels and prophets were said to know. For centuries, the church claimed that speaking it would bring death. Yet here, Lilith used it to rise, to free herself from submission. That part alone explains why her name vanished from Scripture. She wasn't cursed. She escaped. I remember closing the book and sitting there, numb. The guards outside thought I was praying, but I wasn't. I was trying to understand how a story this old, this vital, could be buried for millennia. And the more I looked, the more I found traces of everywhere. Faint ground, early conflicts, warnings in medieval amulets to protect newborns from the woman of the night, and even a veiled mention in Isaiah 34:14, where Hebrew scholars note the word Lilith appears in the oldest versions. The scribes later replaced it with night creature, a subtle edit but deliberate. If this is true, if there was a woman before Eve who spoke the divine name and vanished into myth, then everything about creation as we were taught is incomplete. The balance between man and woman, heaven and earth, was broken long before the apple, long before the serpent. Maybe that's the point. Maybe Eden wasn't paradise lost. Maybe it was balance lost. And that's why the Vatican fears her return. I've spoken with priests who won't even say her name aloud. One of them, an aging Jesuit in Florence, told me he had seen her mentioned only once in the old Vatican Codex Daemonum, a restricted catalogue of entities classified as spiritus perditi, lost spirits. Lilith's entry was not listed among demons, but under a category labeled Femina Exilis, meaning the exiled woman. It described her as once human, once divine, now forgotten. That phrase haunted me. How could someone once considered divine become the very embodiment of evil, unless that transformation was deliberate? As I followed the trail, I discovered that the first time Lilith was officially labeled a demon was not in the Bible, but in the Babylonian Talmud, compiled around the 5th century CE. In those passages, she is accused of strangling infants and seducing men in their sleep. Yet the more I read, the more contradictory. Lilith Haruach, the spirit of the wind. In another, she is the wandering mother. These weren't descriptions of evil. They were attempts to redefine her, to turn power into threat, freedom into sin. By the Middle Ages, her name had become a weapon. Church scholars such as Francis Comestor and Saint Isidore of Seville repeated her story as a warning to women: obey or become her. Lilith became the shadow used to enforce obedience. Every story of a woman accused of witchcraft, seduction, or defiance carried her echo. The church had found its perfect cautionary figure, one that justified fear of feminine independence for centuries. But not all traditions accepted the lie. In ancient Mesopotamian carvings, Lilith still appeared not as a monster, but as a winged guardian, standing between lions, holding the rods and rings of divine authority. This figure, found on the Burney relief, dated around 1800 BCE, predates even Abraham. Scholars argue about her name, but her image says everything: strength, symmetry, sovereignty. The same woman the Vatican would later call a demon once symbolized divine equilibrium. I began to realize the deeper meaning behind her demonization. It wasn't about morality, it was about control, to strip humanity of the feminine aspect of God. The nurturing, intuitive, and transformative principle ensured that power remained one sided. By erasing Lilith, The balance between creation and destruction, love and justice, was broken. The divine became masculine only, and the world has been limping ever since. So when I hear preachers warn that Lilith represents rebellion and temptation, I see something else entirely. I see the voice that refused to kneel, the one that said no when the world demanded silence. The Vatican calls her a demon because they fear what she stands for, not darkness, but restoration. And maybe, just maybe, that's why some say her return is not a curse, but a reckoning. I found the first reference to her covenant not in a religious text, but in a fragment from the Testament of Amram, discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran. The scroll described a female spirit of light and shadow who visited the sons of men, teaching them the secrets of the Watchers. Most scholars ignored the passage, dismissing it as symbolic, but in another suppressed text, the alphabet of Ben Sira, it's clear. After leaving Eden, Lilith fled to the Red Sea and encountered beings who were not entirely human. These were the same beings the Book of Enoch later called the Watchers, the angels who descended to earth and took wives among mortals. The texts say God sent three angels, Senoi, Sansonoi, and Semangaloth, to retrieve her, but she refused to return. What the Apocrypha omit, and what certain Gnostic sects preserved, is that Lilith made a covenant with these angels. In exchange for her freedom, she would reveal knowledge, the hidden arts of birth, the language of divine names, the cycles of the moon. Some versions say she was punished for this, others claim she was honored. Either way, her story shifted from rebellion to initiation. She became a keeper of forbidden wisdom. When I brought this up to a Benedictine scholar who had worked in the Vatican's Archivum Secretum, he went pale. He told me quietly that there was a sealed section titled De Federe Inter Spiritus, on the pact among spirits. It allegedly contained references to Lilith's covenant and the role of the Watchers in early human development. The last known record of this file being opened was 1627, during the Inquisition. He refused to say more, but warned me, those who try to unveil her are often made to disappear. I later found confirmation in a 14th century Kabbalistic manuscript from Safed, Israel. It mentioned a first mother of spirits who communed with the sons of heaven near the waters of the great deep, the same region where, according to Egyptian texts, the Israelites would one day cross the Red Sea. The author described her offspring not as demons, but as Ruachim Tzadikim, spirits of knowledge. He wrote that her children wander the earth, teaching men the language of creation, the power of sound, and the music of the stars. Those words sent chills through me. Think about it. If Lilith was truly the bridge between divine beings and humanity, then her exile wasn't punishment. It was exile for disclosure. She revealed too much. The church couldn't allow a female figure to be remembered as the first bearer of angelic knowledge. So, over centuries, her covenant became a curse. Her name was linked with infant death, lust, and disease. Anything to keep her memory buried under fear. But the deeper I looked, the more I saw her story repeating. In every era, whenever humanity approached hidden knowledge, forbidden texts, suppressed inventions, the sacred feminine, a Lilith appeared and was silenced. Maybe her covenant was never broken. Maybe her presence is not gone, but waiting, whispering through forgotten manuscripts and apocryphal verses, urging humanity to remember what it once knew. And maybe that's what the Vatican is. Was her right.
Situation. Oh, divine feminine. to be erased from history. The daughter of Mary Magdalene and Jesus was erased. I was erased in that past incarnation. And that's okay. It's not it's not something that I need to get vengeance for. You know what I mean? But my existence today as as a man, I bring the sword as my tongue. My tongue is the sword. And I'm going to use it. I'm going to tell the truth. And I've got some good news, some great news. It's not all good. There's some disillusionment that's going to take place. It's good in the sense that disillusionment is good for you. Not that it's pleasant, but that you wake up from the, you wake up from something you had to be taking green pills to keep going, or blue pills, whatever. The red pill ends the program. It ends the illusion. It's the truth. And the red pill causes pain, and it forces individuals to face things they didn't want to face, or it was socially agreed upon not to face. Even the very curses in our own families, our bloodlines, our ancestors, the stuff that our ancestors passed down to us. Everything is in patterns. This is no different. I don't know where to start. Actually, yeah, I do. I'm gonna regroup, circle back with you guys. Thanks for joining me for a minute. Or if you see this at another time, it's a timeless message. You can't make this shit up. Yeah, you could. Good, but we're not.